I'm Peter Sesselmann. I'm sitting here today making my guitar pickups or instrument pickups, and I thought I'll have a little bit of a chat about this product that well, I've been making nearly 20 years now. I think it's 18 years or something since I made the first one, and although a lot has changed in those 18 years, a few things have kind of stayed the same, I suppose. So how do they work, I suppose, is the first question that kind of pops up. So it's not that different to other pickups in the same area. So it's based around a piezo element, which is a brass disc with a quartz crystal and then a silverized surface for conductivity on the other side of the crystal. As the disc vibrates, it produces a small amount of electricity, and that electricity is, shall I say, alternating current, AC, or a sound wave. So it produces a sound. So what does that mean? It means that when you attach these to something that vibrates, that vibration will be transferred into an electric signal that goes into your amplifier or recording computer or whatever, and you can capture the sound. In simple terms, that's how it works. But in reality, it's a little bit more complicated than that, because you can't, or you can simply take a piezo disc and solder a couple of wires to it, stick it up to your guitar or drum or whatever, and you will get a sound. But it may not necessarily be a good sound, or a sound that you would associate with, an acoustic instrument or something like that. So I liken it a little bit to the piezo crystal is a bit like guitar strings. Okay, you can attach the guitar strings to a piece of wood and you strum them and it'll make a sound. Is it a good sound? Well, that depends on the piece of wood and how it's made and all the rest of it. So yes, if you are a luthier and you take the good quality timber and you glue it together with just the right amount of glue in just the right places, and you put just the right strings on and you tune it up, and basically you're building a guitar, you will get a beautiful sound by the end of it. But it's not just about wooden strings. There's a bit more to it than that. And the pickups kind of are a little bit similar. So it's not just a question of sticking a piezo on a piece of wood and make sound. Yes, it will, but it won't be particularly nice. So, which is basically what happened when I started experimenting with making pickups nearly 20 years ago. I thought, oh yeah, great, I'll quickly make one up, stick it on my guitar, see what it sounds like. Sounds horrible. And often when you buy a cheap pickup online, and I've seen them as cheap as a couple of dollars or something like that. That's kind of what you get. It's just a piezo stuck on a piece of plastic with a cable on it, and the sound is, unsurprisingly, ordinary. So how do you make a good sound? Well, like anything, like it's all about the details. It's like building a nice guitar. It's about getting the right timbre, the right thickness, the right grain, the experience of the luthier. These are all the things that come into play. And when all the things line up at the end of it, you get a really nice sounding guitar. So when I make these pickups then, I start off with a piezo element, and although there are different quality piezo elements out there, I'll work on the assumption that everybody who makes pickups uses the best ones, because they're not super expensive. So I don't know why you would want to use a cheap quality piezo, because it's not this disc which is where the quality is, or where the value is. It's like buying or comparing a top-level acoustic guitar based entirely on its strings. Well, the different quality strings, I admit that, but let's, for the purpose of this conversation, assume that all the pickup makers use the top quality piezos. So In order for the piezo then to create the best possible sound, there needs to be a little bit more thought gone into it. So you find then that these piezo elements, they produce an electric sound signal, a sound wave, when they vibrate. But it's not as simple as that. So they make electricity in a few different ways. So you might have seen a piezo lighter, for instance, click, 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 makes a flame. So they can produce quite large amounts of energy in the right circumstances. Now, if you take a piezo like this and you hold it in your fingers and you tap the middle of it, you'll get like a really boomy type sound. Not necessarily a nice sound, but you're basically just shooting a voltage. And that's how a lot of stomp box manufacturers, as you may know, I also make stomp boxes, but I don't use piezos for the stomp boxes because you're really just shooting a voltage into your amp. It doesn't sound particularly good, and it can be quite harmful to your amp if you're not careful. So anyway, getting back to pickups. A piezo element will produce electricity under certain stresses. One is vibration, one is bending, and one is temperature. Now, the temperature part isn't really relevant to what we're doing here today, but certainly the vibration and bending is. So when you buy a cheap piezo pickup that you're just gonna slap onto your guitar, it's really just relying on the vibration aspect of the piezo. And although that is okay, it doesn't sound particularly nice. And there's a few reasons for that. So firstly, when I make my pickups, I mount them not in the plastic enclosure, I mount them in the timber enclosure. And well, it doesn't come as much surprise, I suppose, that when it comes to making a pickup for acoustic instruments, that wood or timber sounds nicer. I mean, that's kind of goes without saying. So I machine these little pickup heads on my CNC machine, and then sand them and varnish them, and then I put a little threaded thingamajig in the middle, and I put a screw through, and that then gets attached to the piezo disc like that. I do a few other things to it before that. I won't go into that now. So that's glued together, and then with the little screw, then you can adjust by tightening the screw a little bit. We're not talking about really going over the top here. We're talking about just applying a little bit of pressure to the back of the crystal. You can push some of those mid frequencies up, and by loosening the screw, you'll release some of those mid frequencies down again. Now, a lot of people complain about the piezo pickups may sound a little bit honky or quacky, I think is the term that's often used. And that's that mid frequency that you want to be able to control. And certainly by tuning the screw a little bit, you can push some of those frequencies out. The other thing that I do to reduce the amount of quack in the treble mid pickup is I cut certain parts of the crystal off. So if you look at the piezo disc like this, I will basically slice off part of the metal disc, making it smaller, and also instead of being round, more stretched out, because the round tends to have a kind of sound that sounds a little honky. So by changing the shape of the piezo itself, you can also adjust the frequencies. Now, I don't stop there. I make my pickups, most of my pickups, almost all my pickups, I supply with two heads. So you've got one which is the treble head, which is made from the timber with the adjustable screw. And then the other one is actually made from a die cast metal. So I cast this myself as well in the centrifugal caster. They're made from a pewter alloy. So it's a low melt alloy. And again, with the piezo disc, they then get glued onto the surface of the disc. They kind of look like that once they're assembled. And then there's a little bit of passive electronics that I apply. There's a little, you can see that at all. It's a resistor in the cap, which is a little bit of a frequency filter. It takes out a little bit of the of the quack out of the bass pickup. So the treble pickup you can adjust with a little screw, and the bass pickup has a low pass filter, I suppose, that cuts out some of that upper low quack, what do you want to call it. And then the most important thing, once you've basically made the pickup, then, and you got the two pickup heads, and you have they're ready to put on the guitar, then the really important thing is where do you place them on the instrument itself. So a little bit of experimentation, like do you put it right next to the bridge, or do you go a little bit more towards the edges? Or depending, if a standard guitar around the bridge area is really quite nice. I've had some ukuleles where I've found that the bass pickup should be more on the side, or even in front of the bridge underneath. If you're installing internally, if you're using the pickup externally, you obviously limit it a little bit to what's practical. But you can experiment and get the best sound. Some archtop guitars, for instance, I found that putting the bass pickup on the back worked on some of them. Not all, but some of them, it gave a nicer tone with the bass pickup attached to the back. Now, when I say attach, I don't mean just slap it on. When you buy my pickups, it comes with the instructions on how to do it. And again, exactly how you attach this to the instrument is also very, very important. I know there's some pickup manufacturers out there who recommend super gluing them hard and fast to the surface of the guitar. And I'm not a big believer of that. I mean, that doesn't give you the best sound. It gives you a sound, but not the best sound. You want a little bit of distance from the guitar. Imagine the pickup being a little bit like a microphone. Some singers, they like to put the mic right in their mouth and scream into it, and that may work for certain genres of music, but I wouldn't say that's a nice sound. That's very much just the sound that they want to get by screaming into a mic they almost swallow. To get the nicest, more natural sound, you want to bring that microphone a little bit away, and you want to kind of like sing over the top of it. The same with the guitar pickup. You want to remove it a little bit from the surface of the guitar using, of course, when we're talking about the pickup, we're not talking about, a foot. We're talking about a couple of millimeters. And I supply my pickups with this tack. It's like a blue tack or white tack that you might have put your posters up with when you were a teenager. You might still be a teenager. Unfortunately, I'm not. So by rolling a little ball out of that sticky material and placing it strategically on the back of the pickup, I recommend on the treble pickup, I recommend 2 little balls, one on each side of the element. And on the bass pickup, I actually recommend like a little sausage, a little long bit. Again, the instructions are in the pickup. And then gently massaging that onto the right place of the guitar. And that will, in most circumstances, give you a really nice, level, acoustic sound with overtones and richness that you would want to get from an acoustic instrument. It's not like the under saddle pickups, which are in contact with the strings, so they really are very stringy sounding, and they some people argue like all the sound you're getting is from your $20 strings, not from your $5,000 guitar. So you can go and buy yourself a $20 guitar, put $20 strings on, and you got the same sound. It's not entirely true, because the guitar will actually give some support sound from the back. But the element that is true is that a very large percentage of the sound is coming from the string itself and the saddle. So you're not getting a lot of value from your beautiful timbres. Like you might have a handmade luthier guitar that you spent an enormous amount of money on and put an under saddle pickup in, and you're really just getting your strings. Kind of selling it a bit short. But in a case like that, you would probably use a microphone or some other means to get those tones out. But this is basically what I've been trying to achieve with the convenience of a pickup, but to get a sound not totally dissimilar to what you expect to get in a recording studio when you use a proper recording microphone. So that's my 5 cents worth on my pickups that I am currently making here today. As I said, I've been making them now for nearly over 18 years, so I've made thousands of them, and almost without fail, everybody who has purchased one has been very happy with the results. And you can see some of the reviews on my website. I don't have thousands of reviews. I don't hound people for reviews. I just leave it up to the customers themselves if they feel like leaving a review or not. So a lot of them have, and I'm very thankful for that, because it not only helps you looking to buy a pickup, it also helps me who's making it, that whatever comments they make I can then take on board. And as I said, the pickup has evolved over the last 18 years, so I'm always making little improvements. The most recent improvement, which is just a simple little improvement, but I've made the cable slightly longer, so that you have a little bit more flexibility on the movement. Not a lot, I think it's only about that much longer, but it makes a difference to some instruments. So that comes from customer feedback. I had a few customers saying, "Oh, can you make it a little bit longer?" So I thought, well, I can make them all a little bit longer. It doesn't, that much cable doesn't cost anything. There's no cost in that. It's just a question of making a decision or making a better product. So that's another one of the advantages, I suppose, with buying a handmade, product like the one I make, or bespoke, or whatever you want to call it, is that you are dealing directly with the maker. And I make every pickup I make myself with these two hands. So I don't have any staff. There's no one else here except me. Sometimes I will get helpers in to do this basic tasks, stripping some cables, pre-soldering some solder points and things like that. But all the assembly and making I do myself. So I hope you enjoyed this little chat. Unfortunately, it's one way. I can't get your input here. Maybe that's something we could do one day. I would really like that, actually. Fun. I could sit here and work and have a chat to you live. So and I know the technology is there for that to happen these days. The only problem is that I'm not really in the city, and my broadband connection, internet connection here, is dodgy at best. So to try and do a live broadcast, I think will be very challenging at this point. However, I believe they are working on this area, and that we should get better connection soon. So you never know. Keep in touch and we'll see how we go. Anyway, have a good one. Cheers. So you might wonder, why are the two pickup heads different? Why is one made from timber and one made from a die-cast metal? Well, it's because you want to try and capture different frequencies. It's easier to break it up into two jobs rather than one job. So making one pickup that captures everything is a lot more complicated and maybe even impossible to do well. Imagine it a bit like a loudspeaker. Most loudspeakers have a woofer and a tweeter. They give the job to two different elements to be able to create a full rich sound. Although there are some single driver speakers out there, but the good ones are usually quite expensive and very kind of specific market. But I'd say the majority of speaker manufacturers would go the route of having a kind of like a tweeter and a woofer. Now this is not exactly the same as that, but it's leaning into that kind of theory, that it's easier to get the good, nice, live, airy, high frequencies, to concentrate on those, and then get the bass frequencies separately in a different pickup, and then join them together and you get a full rich sound. So one of the interesting things with guitar pickups like this is that the cost of the pickup, it really isn't a guide as to how good it's going to be. Sure, if you buy a really, really cheap and nasty one off eBay, then there's a strong chance, I'd say almost 100% chance, that it's going to be rubbish and it will sound horrible. But you could go out and spend several $100s on the pickup, and it may still not be that much better. I have an example of this. I'm not going to mention the pickup name, but during lockdown, actually, I was lucky enough to come across a second-hand gypsy guitar, like a Selmer, beautiful Dorado Schmidt signature guitar, and it had a very expensive pickup installed in it. So I thought I was quite excited about that, because I wanted to compare the pickups with the one that I make, and to see how, how good this, because as a pickup maker, I don't buy a lot of pickups. I make my own, I don't judge it against other pickups so much. I judge it against my ears and say, well, does this sound good? Yes or no? Not does it sound better or worse than this brand, or does it sound better or worse than this? I'm not really into that kind of competition. For me, it's just about, is it fit for purpose? Is it convenient? Is it affordable? Does it sound good? Can you just plug it in without the need for preamps and all that kind of stuff? So, which is another question that keeps coming up. Do you need a preamp? Not really. It depends on your equipment, of course, but the thing is that the question really should be, do you need an additional preamp? Because most amplifiers have a preamp built in. If you've got a volume, tone, bass, treble, that kind of stuff on your amplifier, well, then there is a preamp already in your amplifier. So the question is, do you need an additional preamp to the one you already have? And the answer is usually not. But sometimes you may, and sometimes you may want to. I tend to prefer, personally, just using a good quality equalizer pedal, like a Boss or is it MXR or something they call 10 band. You can tune your frequency nicely to the guitar, to the room, to the amp, so you got the freedom of then making little adjustments to the sound as you're using it, So you can see here at the moment I'm cutting bits of the crystal off to hone the frequencies. So I have a little ruler that I use to draw the lines on with, so I don't cut too much or too little. So anyway, we're talking about this Gitan Gypsy guitar, Dorado Schmidt. Beautiful guitar, I gotta tell you. Oh, thanks COVID. no, thanks COVID. We don't want COVID back. But if it wasn't for COVID, I wouldn't have bought that guitar, and I'm very happy I did. So anyway, it had this pickup built in, not built in. It had been installed by a luthier. It was a second. I bought it secondhand, and the previous owner had paid. Well, they had the price on the box. When he sold me the guitar, it came with the box for the pickup and the receipt for how much he paid for it. And I think he paid over $300 Australian for the pickup itself. And it didn't say on the receipt what the installation cost, but I would imagine it'd be somewhere between $50 and $100 to install. So not really a cheap pickup. And it was certainly a name brand that I had heard of and I had seen online. And I was really keen to try it out. So I thought, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an A/B analysis. I'm going to do some. Sorry, I'm tidying up a little bit as I'm talking here. I'm going to do some recording with the old pickup and some recording with my pickup, and then see how it compares. Well, I quickly gave up on that idea because the one that was in the guitar, it sounded so bad that I was astonished. First, I thought it must be broken or something. So I fiddled. I had a look and see if there was any broken cables, and I checked them. Of course, I used the battery. So I checked the first thing I did is check the battery, and I tried it again, and it still sounded really honky and feedback like crazy. I mean, you barely turn your amp up, and the thing is howling. So I thought, this can't be right. And I fiddled and I diddled and I took it out and I reinstalled it and I tried, and I came to a conclusion that it was basically rubbish. It wasn't fit for purpose. The theory was interesting, the way they'd done it. They hadn't used piezos. They'd used some other technology. And it was more of a microphone type technology. But it was really, in my opinion, it was really, really bad. So, as I said, I didn't even want to do a comparison because I don't want to be associated with that product. So what you pay paying more doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a better product. It's not like for $100 you get a fairly good product, for $200 you get a better product, and for $300 you get a great product. It's not like that at all. It's a complete random, really, the pricing and the quality, which is not just limited to pickups. That's kind of how our world operates, I think. But so anyway, all I can say is that my pickup sounded a lot better. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that.